I'm Kerry Fink, and on behalf of Team Derrick, what an honor it is here to be for the R3 conference. And we're going to be talking about marketing for your nonprofit or ministry today. And what a blessing this is going to be. First of all, greetings from the sunny shores of Kona, Hawaii, where Tammy and I are this week and enjoying God's blessings. It's the most beautiful place you can possibly imagine, and I hope that one day you'll have, if you haven't, you'll have an opportunity to get out here and check this out for yourself. It is tremendous. So, with the R3 conference, we're involved in every part of where God has you going for kingdom living. It's everything from, we've talked about our kids with the Bible Club, we've talked about our youth with Pastor Dave KD3 Bryan. We certainly have gone into many great areas with Team Derrick. First of all, from the Women in Action Revive side with Lady Ramona Derrick, and certainly with Pastor Rodney Derrick, where we've looked at things from a man's perspective, and then we've had Marriage Roundtable. There's so many good tools that are available. Every one of these tools, by the way, is set up for you to enjoy on Team Derrick Ministries. .org. You can also access them. Make sure you subscribe to the Team Derrick YouTube channel and also the Team Derrick Facebook page. All those videos are there. But today, I want to talk to you. If God's given you a vision about what you need to be doing with your ministry or nonprofit, sometimes we're afraid to talk about these things about money and marketing and things like that. The world is quite good at it, but the people in the kingdom of God should be the ones who excel at everything. So we're going to have a look at a presentation I did for some friends of ours in Israel. They have a app for your phone called Big View. We're going to talk about that a little bit more later as we talk about how you can use video in your marketing. And I'm going to start with a little bit of a mini presentation that's going to start from about right here so that we can get you a little bit into where we're going to head with this. So we'll be back. So welcome. So we're going to talk a little bit about marketing today. And one of the things that we have to talk about is, how do you define marketing? What does that mean? Well, it's defined in the dictionary as the action or business of promoting and selling products or services, including market research and advertising. And so what we're going to do is talk a little bit about how you can be effective in selling when we talk about things that you're doing for your nonprofit or ministry. And sometimes people say, well, that feels a little bit secular. But before we get too far into this, I wanted to share a couple of things that what the Bible has to say about marketing. And the first one I want to share comes from Joshua 1, King James Version. And there's a couple of passages in there. Verse 3, every place the sole of your foot shall tread upon, that I have given unto you, as I said unto Moses. And verse number 5, there shall not be any man who is able to stand before thee all the days of thy life. As I was with Moses, so shall I be with thee. I will not fail thee, nor forsake thee. So that ought to give us comfort that we can look for success in what we're doing with marketing and what we're doing with our ministry and work there. So one of the things that I like is in that same chapter, verse 8, the book of the law shall not depart out of thy mouth, but thou shalt meditate therein day and night, that thou mayest observe to do according to all that is written there. For then thou shalt make thy way prosperous, and then thou shalt have good success. For the Lord thy God is with thee wheresoever thou goest. Now, if God didn't want you to prosper, I don't think he would have written a text like that. And there's so many passages in the Bible that are worth looking at. Genesis 1:28, and God blessed them and said unto them, be fruitful and multiply, and replenish the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth on the earth. That is your call to be successful in what you're doing in terms of bringing the kingdom living message out to everybody that you run into. Genesis 9:7, as for you, be fruitful and multiply, populate the earth abundantly and multiply in it. And if you look through all these Old Testament, there's another one, Deuteronomy 8:18. But remember the Lord your God, for it is He who gives you the ability to produce wealth, and so confirms His covenant which He swore to your ancestors as it is today. Here again, if you weren't supposed to prosper, God wouldn't have put it in the Bible that way. Even in the New Testament, there's passage after passage that brings this up. And he said in Luke 19:13, he called his 10 servants, delivered them 10 pounds, and said unto them, occupy until I come. Luke 19:13. So he called 10 of his servants, gave them 10 minas. Put this money to work, he said, until I come back. And then, of course, we know the story from Matthew 25:15. To one he gave 5 talents, to another he gave 2 talents and 1 talent, each according to his own ability. And he promptly went away on his journey. So when you start thinking about this, and then he called when he came back, in Luke 19:15, it says, when he returned, having received the kingdom, he ordered these servants to whom he had given the money to be called to him, that he might know what they had gained by doing business. So one of the things that, and the Bible is chock full of different references about this, but that's why it's so important that we should be doing everything we do in kingdom living with excellence. And that's what we're going to try to talk about today. And we're going to look at this clip that we did for a group called Big View out of Israel, who has a very, very popular mobile phone app that is designed to help you do video. And I think you're going to get some good instruction as we go through that.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tal, and I'm the Product Marketing Manager at Big View. And I wanted to welcome you all for today's workshop. Thank you for joining us today. So I just want to note that this workshop will be recorded and available for watching after the live event. So don't you worry about that. And at the end of the presentation, there will be a Q&A session. So all of your questions will be answered. So before we start, just let me know that you're with us today by writing in the chat where you're from and if you know Big View. And I just want to tell you that today we're going to learn about how video adds profit to your nonprofit. And for this reason, I invited Kerry Fink, is the CEO of TYG Media. And Kerry, the stage is yours. Hello, Kerry.
Hello. I hope your day is going quite well, and so exciting to be here, and just really excited to have the opportunity to present a little bit about video, because it really is a great tool, and it's becoming not only a tool, but a necessary tool as we go forward. So if it's all right, Tal, I'm going to go ahead and share a screen so that we can go ahead and have a little bit of discussion about our topic today, called Adding Profit to Your Nonprofit. And so this is really an exciting thing for us to be talking about, because what you're able to do today used to take an entire production studio to be able to accomplish. And so just this cutesy little picture that we begin with was actually a photo that we used for a project called Florida Baptist Credit Union, which was actually a nonprofit credit union here in Florida. And we were looking for some good ideas, but we thought it's also a cute way to think about that. People think about nonprofits as things that we want to be attracted to. And so that's part of our job, is to try to present things in that sort of way. So as we look forward a little bit, I want to share with you just by way of background who we are. So we're an organization called TYG Media. And what we are is a Christian multimedia organization, which means we work on Christian movies, Christian television. We've done a lot on digital platforms. We do a lot on radio. We syndicate to a couple hundred radio stations throughout the United States with a format called Christian FM. But then we also are doing a lot of secular nonprofit work as well, because there's a great demand for that out there. And so a lot of times what we want to do is think of the best ways that we can reach out and share good information. And so that's what we do. And I'm Kerry Fink. And so what we're going to do right now is jump right into what I want to talk about. The topic for today is video adds profit to your nonprofit. And this is actually a still from a movie production that we worked on a few years ago, literally about 10 years ago. And the thing I want you to notice is that our actor is the gentleman on the left side of your screen. And you can see how many people are sitting there behind the camera to make this all work. This is literally a scene of a student walking into a school building, but you see, we had to set up all kinds of lighting. We had to have whiteboards to kind of move the lighting around. We had dolly tracks. We had all kinds of things moving. So it took like, I don't know, 8, 10, 12 people that you see even in just in this picture, let alone the director and the other people who were a little bit off camera to make this shot work. So you could tell in olden days, it took a lot of money and a lot of effort to get good shot. This was actually shooting in those days. It was called a red camera, shot in 4K. Now, when you think about it, your smartphone can shoot in 4K. So that's how far things have come in just 10 years. And that's what we want to talk about today. So I want to start by sharing a little bit of a story. There was a popular American holiday movie called It's a Wonderful Life. And in it, the story of George Bailey, his life is kind of taken apart. There's an angel there called Clarence, and you can see in the picture there. And so what has happened is George Bailey has just tried to throw his life away, and the angel saves him. And George Bailey needs $8,000 right now because that's what his trouble is all about. And so George Bailey asks his guardian angel, "Can you give me the $8,000?" And I'm sort of paraphrasing here. He says, "Now, tut, we don't use money where I come from." And so George shoots back to the angel. He says, "Well, it comes in pretty handy around here, bub." And so that's one of the challenges when we have a nonprofit. I actually tell people, so we have to be some of the best salespeople ever, because we can't do the things that we want to accomplish without the help of others. In fact, that's one of the key things, because basically all we typically have as a product for a nonprofit or a ministry is really most often an intangible. So about the best we can typically do is say, "Thank you for helping us. Thank you for your generosity. Thank you for doing good," in return for their support. So as a nonprofit marketer or as a ministry marketer, and even I know marketing sometimes has an unhappy connotation in nonprofit world or in that kind of way of thinking about it, but yet really you have to have profit in a nonprofit. A lot of times people come to us and say, "I'm trying to form an organization. Do I make it a profit or a nonprofit?" And I said, really, it doesn't matter unless you're going to come down to who gets whatever's left over at the end of it. If the idea is you're trying to perpetuate it for your community, then by definition, it's a nonprofit because it doesn't accrue to any one person. We're trying to do good. And that's kind of what we're after with everything we're going to talk about today. So remember, a ministry and a nonprofit has to engage to get the resources necessary to accomplish their mission. And that's not an easy thing. Number one, people don't just show up at your doorstep. We work with a lot of nonprofits and they say, "Oh, don't you guys get like a lot of government grants and things like that that help you make it go?" And at least here in the United States, sometimes that happens, but actually most of the time it happens through the generosity of corporate donors or individual donors who get behind your vision and help you do the things that you need to do. And so one of the challenges that we have in marketing a nonprofit or a ministry is we have to get the word out. And how do we best do that? It doesn't come for free, or can it? And that's what we're going to talk about as we go through our presentation today. You know, in the olden days, we would tell our story as a nonprofit or a ministry via direct mail. We might find a zip code. We might put postcards out. We might do direct mailing letters. If we had a little bit more money, we might go on television. We might buy some time, either spot time, or we might buy a program. We might choose to go on radio and deliver our message by radio. Maybe by time on a radio station. We would potentially use newspapers or magazines, or depending on what we're trying to do, we could even use billboards. And so think about that, how media was just 12 years ago, because I want you to remember, as we're talking about this, This little smartphone has only been around since 2008. That's how much all of this is revolutionized in this amount of time. So the old days, you had to think about all these dimensions of media. You had to think about direct mail, television, radio, all these things. Today, it's really this simple. Everything that you're trying to do can come down to your smartphone. Think about how we get our news. Think about how we get our entertainment. Think about how we get the things that we're interested in. Think about everything, including direct mail, which is now your email, right? Everything all comes down to your smartphone. And so that's why it's so important that we think of a way to market our nonprofit or our ministry in such a way. And so I always go, well, so this is great. We can do everything through this phone. Now we can reach everyone through one device. And that only leaves us with one problem. How do you break through the clutter? It's actually more difficult now, maybe, than it used to be, because as you know, we've all become accustomed to, for good or bad, multitasking, right? Which means at best we're giving part of an ear, part of an eye, part of our attention to something while we're trying to do something else. In fact, we often counsel people who are watching videos or talking to us about video. We say, that's one of the reasons why you want to have captions. It's one of the reasons why you want to have the subtitles. It's one of the reasons why you want to have the lower thirds, because what typically happens, and think about yourself in this, somebody sends you an email, says, you got to watch this. And so it comes from somebody you like. So you click the link and you start to watch it. And what you understand as you start to go through this is that, you watch the first 5 or 10 seconds, then you kind of drift away, right? Because you're answering another email, or maybe you're looking at something else that's on your desk or on your screen or on your phone, and you're kind of halfway paying attention, and you'll occasionally glance back at that video. And that's why one of the challenges that we have in being effective marketers for our nonprofit and or our ministry is to be able to take advantage of capturing people's time and attention. And that's why this video that we're going to talk about is such an important part of all this. So there's an old saying in marketing, they used to say, a picture is worth 1,000 words, which meant you could be the best prose writer since William Shakespeare, but you're probably not going to do as well as with a great photo. In fact, I want you to think about it. Think about how Instagram launched, or Snapchat, or some of the other things. They all launched based on pictures, because they said pictures are going to be getting more attention than video. But let's think about where we are today. The old saying is a picture is worth 1,000 words, but today the new saying really is a video is worth 10,000 words, right? Because every single platform that first allowed picture sharing ended up moving to video. I want you to think about it, whether it's the granddaddy of them all, Facebook, or you want to talk about Twitter, or you want to talk about Instagram. Everybody started adding video, and look what's the craze these days. It's like TikTok, which is all about quick videos and things like that. So we have to learn, if we're going to be effective in our marketing of a nonprofit, we have to be effective at getting into the video world. And so this is what I want to point out. Old school production, like we started out the presentation with, we saw these pictures. This is actually, we had for many years here in the, we're on the Space Coast of Florida, where they launched the rockets, and we really enjoy being here. It's right on the Atlantic Ocean and all of that. Lovely place to be. And we had a 10,000 square foot production facility, and you're seeing some photos from that, because it was necessary for us to have a huge green screen. We had to have all these kind of lights and all this material to be able to film things effectively. And it was because in those days, cameras weren't very good. They were, in those days, the cameras cost $30,000, $35,000 a piece, and they weren't even HD quality. And if you want to look at the lights in the picture, you'll see that those things burned. I mean, if you were cold at night in the middle of a desert, you had one of those lights, you'd be just fine, because that was one of the reasons you had to have a sound studio. You had to be able to have a huge air conditioner to be able to cool it off enough that people could actually be in there. You had to be in a situation where not only did you have that right, you had to have the lighting exactly right, because the cameras were finicky. And then you had to have the audio correct, because the mics weren't nearly as good as what you have today. So that's old school production. But let me take you to where we are today. This production studio that she's got in her hand is like just as good as anything we had 10, 15 years ago. So let's really shift gears and start talking about how we're going to use that. We want to make you or help you market like a superhero. And so the point that I'm trying to make to you today is you already have a TV studio. You can put this thing in your pocket right here. This is your TV studio, and you have free worldwide access to the greatest TV platforms in the world, something we never had 10 or 15 years ago. You had to, first of all, have a TV studio or get a production company to be able to do things. And then you had to be able to find locations that you could afford to put your video out on. So in America, for example, smaller local businesses and organizations might try to scrape up enough money to run ads on cable TV. Today, social media is where it's at. And so that's where we want to be. Now, we're going to cover two areas in today's talk. We're going to talk about 3 myths that you might be thinking about as it pertains to video and your nonprofit ministry, because I hear these a lot, and see if any of these resonate with you, or maybe you've heard some of these before. The first thing that I've heard an awful lot is, okay, I have a smartphone, but I can't really afford the equipment that I need to make good video. And we're gonna bust that myth. You guys may remember the show Mythbusters. We're gonna do our own version of that today. Number 2, I hate the way I look and sound on recordings, and I'm not even good at presenting on video. Can't tell you how many times we hear that from first-time people. And this was even back in the day of sound stages. They'd show up to record a commercial or a particular bit, and then they would become really concerned because they'd never seen themselves on a video before. So that's myth number 2. And myth number 3, I have no idea even what I would talk about. So we're going to break these myths apart one at a time, if that's okay with you. So number 1, Mythbuster number 1, let me tell you, you already have probably the assets you need to make video work for you and your nonprofit. And then you'd have your own professional TV studio. So number 1, it's the basic. You need to have a good smartphone, okay? Number 2, you need to get a smartphone tripod, or at least boxes you can set your phone on or something so it'll be stable. A little tripod is like $15, $25. It's a very small investment. It's a good idea if you can afford it to get an external microphone. That may be one of the high dollar amounts in it. We use a thing called the Blue Yeti mic. It's about $100, maybe a little bit more in the United States, but it gives you really good audio quality, lots of control over your audio. So that's a nice thing to have. But even your smartphone is picking up better and better these days if you have a late model smartphone. So extra lighting is good to have so that you can make your lighting look good, particularly from the front, so your face is properly lit and things like that. But you know what? Those aren't expensive either. For under $50, you can get set up with something like that. There's plenty of options for that. And then probably, at least in my opinion, one of the strongest things that you can do to set yourselves up for success for your ministry and nonprofit is to get a copy of the Big View app. So number 1, if you haven't used Big View app, you can download it. It's available on the iPhone App Store. It's also available on Droid versions as well. And it basically turns your telephone into a production studio. And I'm not minimizing that. When you have the ability to put music behind your videos, you have the ability to green screen, you have the ability to put lower thirds onto it. Lower thirds, by the way, is the little captions that you see come up that says, oh, I'm Kerry Fink with TYG Media, or this newscaster is giving you this news story. You can do that. You can put captions in. There's so many things, and you can teleprompt with it too. So if you bought everything on that whole list, you'd have a TV studio, not counting your smartphone. You'd have a TV studio for a couple $100. Most of it's one time, and the other would be a very nominal fee for subscribing to the Big View app to be able to do all the things. There's plenty of good material about learning how to use Big View app on the Big View YouTube channel and Facebook page. So I'm not going to get into that, but I do want to start breaking down myth number 2. Myth number 2 is, I hear this a lot, I hate the way I look and sound on video. And so the answer to that is, yes, we are our own worst critics. If you guys have ever watched or seen an old photo from like the 1800s, you'll see everybody was very formal. They were standing there very still, and they had sort of a sour look on their face. And the reason for that was because the cameras weren't very good. They told them to stand very still. They had to collect enough light on the negative and all those kind of things. And people had no idea what they looked like. And I am sure when that person saw their portrait, their film photo from the 1800s, and said, do I really look like that? I can't possibly look like that. And then I want you to think even back to photos from the 50s and 60s, right? Do you remember, if you're old enough, you may remember being a small child and your parents telling you, stand still, film is expensive. I got to get a good shot. You're standing in front of something. We got to get a good shot. Everybody hold it, stand still, smile. And so even those photos, when we look back at them today, we sort of smile because we really didn't know how to look good for a camera then. Today, in 2021, we all know how to pose for a camera. We've mastered the art of selfies and everything else. So we know how to get a good photo. The next level up is what's happening now, which is just learning how to work with video. And the best way, guess what, to learn to work with video is the same way you learn to work with selfies and everything else. Get the Big View app, start practicing, throw out the ones you don't like, get good, and use the ones that you do. So that's myth number 2. And let's move on to myth number 3. I don't know what to talk about. And this is a big challenge, and it's a valid concern, because if you're going to move into video, what on earth would you use video for in your nonprofit or ministry? And that's what we're going to speak about. But I want you to think already that you're way ahead of the curve, even past what you think you are already. And that is because if you have a passion for your nonprofit or your ministry, that exudes from you anyway. It can't help but come out of it. It's your cause. It's what you're all about. It's what you want people to understand. So I don't care if you're in a restaurant talking to people. I don't care if you're on stage talking to people. I don't care if you're in a conference talking to people. You are selling your nonprofit or ministry and what it is that you're trying to do next in your nonprofit or ministry. So you have a lot to say, and we're going to give you 7 specific ideas that you could think about that would maybe help you in this. So let's go off with number 1. So number 1 is video updates. And what I want to talk to you about video updates is that these are things that you could use regular quick check-ins to post on social media to keep every stakeholder involved. You have volunteers, you have donors, you have a board of directors maybe. You have other people that you're responsible to, and you need to keep them up to date. One of the things I love about media is you can speak at one time and distribute it many. So it's a very efficient way of getting the word out. I want to show you real quick. And if you're interested, by the way, be happy to share websites or things so you can get a better idea. But when we were confronted with COVID in an organization called Helping Seniors of Brevard, which is an organization that manages the county's senior information helpline here in Brevard County, Florida, along the Space Coast. It takes calls from seniors who need help with all sorts of issues, legal, financial, medical, connects them to the resources they need. We were trying to figure out how do we keep word going in the middle of a COVID world that we could get information in the hands of people. We couldn't go into a TV studio, which we do. We broadcast 3 times a day on one of the local television stations here with Helping Seniors TV. We do radio shows weekly in this area as well. But we needed something that would reach people when we were all locked down at home. And guess what came to mind? It was a Helping Seniors update. We could record it using Zoom calls, and we could talk to people all over. And sometimes it was with a guest, and sometimes it was literally just a person who needed to communicate news about where, if you remember early on, it's where face masks could be found, where things like toilet paper could be found. So the idea of creating an update was perfect for COVID, but it could be perfect for you and your nonprofit as well during this period of time when you're trying to communicate out what's next. So that's idea number 1. Use video to give video updates. You might choose to do it weekly, monthly. You might choose to do it for different constituencies. You might have one to report to your donor base. You might have one to report to, if you're a ministry, your congregation, etc. So let's go on to number 2. Another great reason to have a TV studio in your pocket is because you might choose it for product distribution. What do I mean by that? You might view yourself as a ministry or nonprofit as a creator of video that is in fact your product. And particularly if you're a ministry, that may be your product. You may be wanting to record your sermons, your homilies, your messages, whatever things that you need to share. This could be the product. And, in America, in many areas, churches, for example, were locked down because they said it wasn't safe for people to be able to gather. So overnight, many religious institutions had to learn how to go on Zoom and share their message. And so again, for the organization I picked here is called Team Derrick Ministries out of Dallas, Texas. And these guys are actually, they decided to go 100% virtual and now are reaching worldwide. They're talking to people every week in every place from Pakistan to Brazil, and the ministry keeps growing because that's an advantage of the World Wide Web. So you can use TV to help you actually distribute your product, which could be, like I said, it could be a sermon, it could be anything like that. Let's go on to the third idea. The third idea is event promotion. Now, everybody's kind of familiar. This is one of the strengths of social media. You can tell people, say, hey, we're doing this. It's coming up on Saturday. Make a plan to join us there. I think this is really going to be meaningful for you. So the example we chose here was that we chose an event that we did at the Space Coast Fairgrounds. We had a youth concert that was connected when the Space Coast State Fair was here with all the rides and everything else. They had a big stage set up, and so we could invite a lot of people out. So we had Transforming Your City Youth Acceleration, and we used video promos to be able to let folks know to be there on that particular Saturday and enjoy all that was going on there. So a third way to use video is for event promotion. The fourth way to use video is for training and education. And everybody's familiar. This is what we're watching a video for, hopefully right now. Hopefully we're getting training and education if I'm doing my part of this well. But we can use video to reach globally for training and education. That could be whether you're needing to train volunteers, employees, students, and more. And the case study that we picked out for this is a Bible college located on the eastern shore of Maryland called Chesapeake Bible College and Seminary International. And again, this is a school that has people studying literally globally. And again, because of video, they're able to put lessons up that people can access on demand around the globe, regardless of the time zone, regardless of just when it's convenient for them to access. And you know what? It's made what otherwise would be a traditional correspondence college very, very viable in 2021 because now it's able to reach globally using the power of video. So let's go on to number 5. Number 5 is you need to make an impact. So a lot of times we're just starting up. We're trying to get our vision straightened out. We're trying to get the word out there about who we are and why we're trying to make a difference. And so video is a great way to increase followers and build loyalty with stakeholders. And the example we picked for this is an organization that's here in Florida called Dove Bible Club. And what it is an after-school Bible club program where kids are trained or taught about some of the messages of how to live a good life as presented in the Bible. And so in this particular example, Loretta Dozier, who's the president and founder of Dove Bible Club, had to get creative on several different levels. Number one, when they were ready to, then normally they would visit on a school property and have an after school lesson, but as COVID hits, now you have to go to video, and you have to remember, you have to not only talk to kids, but you have to talk to the parents of kids. So again, video lets you hit both audiences. So let's move on to number 6. Point number 6, things you can do to improve your ministry or nonprofit with video. So number 6 is awareness. So there's a little bit of difference between impact. Impact, you're trying to get people to do something particular. Number 6, awareness, means you're trying to get people to notice that you're there. So a project we had the privilege of working together with is Narda Michael Walden. Narda is the person who actually got Whitney Houston's career started. Very famous producer, produced lots and lots and lots of hits. He's worked with Mariah Carey, all the big names, Aretha Franklin, all the big names, Who's Zoomin' Who, all those songs were produced by Narda Michael Walden. And so he had a passion to create something called Narda's Great Gospel Show. And what he wanted to do was take some of the classic gospel songs of all time. And while this is really brand extension for Narda, he needed to let people know that this was important to him and that he wanted to get the word out. So when he redid songs like Oh Happy Day or come on, people, now, let's get together. We needed a way to get that word out. So we were able to do that through videos and things like that. We're basically him telling his story and the people, his musicians, his singers, working with him to do that. So awareness is another great opportunity that we have with video for nonprofits. The last and almost I would say the most obvious area to use video is for fundraising. And so I'm going to give you two real specific examples about this. The Helping Seniors organization that I told you about at the beginning when we were talking about the updates, one of the ways that they finance the operation is through what's called the car raffle. People buy tickets by making a donation into the organization, and at a certain point in time, they pull the tickets and a winner gets a brand new car. And so the car is donated and there's all these things, but basically the money goes to fund the nonprofit. Well, as you can imagine, in traditional years, we would take a car out to a senior expo. We might take it out to a car show with lots of car enthusiasts. We might do all these things that we would want to do in a face-to-face kind of basis, but we couldn't do that in the COVID world. So we had to take everything once again to video. We had lots of testimonials. We had people talking about which car they liked best. We had a Dodge versus Chevy challenge. We tried to do all kinds of things that we could do with video, handheld video. Again, not talking about big production. I'm talking about with handheld video using tools like Big View Production to be able to do that. Another thing is we're in the process right now of working with Dove Bible Club, who I told you about right now, who normally every February has a banquet. So this year it's going to be a virtual banquet, as these things have to go in COVID world. And so, in fact, what they've done is partnered with Chick-fil-A, which is a fast food chain over here, who's providing the virtual banquet. So everybody gets a gift card when they buy a banquet ticket to be able to go by and pick up their chicken sandwich, come home, load their TV up, get ready to watch the actual banquet where the speakers and everything will present. So those are the kind of things that we can do with video. And I just want to suggest that you can give your nonprofit or ministry a great gift this year. Add video to your profit for your nonprofit and take a real serious look at the Big View app. We're proud to use that and think it's a great tool for us to use. So that's a little bit the story from TYG Media. And I want to thank you for your attention to all that. And we'll kind of pick it up from there.
Thank you so much. So feel free to ask questions if you have some in the chat. We got some compliments about Big View and how Big View help with video and just jumping in. In the meanwhile, I will send in the chat Big View's information and also Kerry's information if you want to contact him. And feel free to ask questions in meanwhile.
You know, Tal, one of the most important things I think is that there is no substitute. You know, like I made the point earlier that we use the selfie as a way to get used to how we could do camera views different. And one of the beautiful things about Big View, I think, is that you're able to give yourself a lot of practice, and particularly that aspect of having that teleprompter right in front of you as you're trying to work on your eye contact with the camera, and all of that is so important. It's so important.
Yes, I definitely agree. Okay, we will wait one more minute if you have questions for Kerry or for me about Big View. And for now, I want to thank you, Kerry, for an interesting workshop. I think all of us learned a lot. And I want to thank all of you for listening to us, and see you in the next workshop. Thank you, everyone.
You know, that was such a pleasure to be able to make that presentation on behalf of Big View. I hope you enjoyed it as well. I think one of the things that we want to think about as we go forward is how you can maximize what God has ahead of you. I just firmly believe that God has some great things in store for you. He's given you a vision. He's given you the tools to equip you so that you can walk that vision out. And not being afraid to do the marketing, not being afraid to think about it from the strategy. I mean, think about it. We have the best product in the entire universe to sell, Jesus Christ. So let's go with that, and let's just keep this moving. On behalf of Pastor Rodney Derrick and Pastor Lady Ramona Derrick, such an honor to be part of the R3 conference and all the great things. And every Sunday, make sure that you're back here. It's 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Central, because Team Derrick has a conversation chat just for you. God bless you, and thanks for tuning in today.